Disowned and branded ugly by my family, I returned after 9 years at my sister's wedding. Mom snapped, "What's this defect doing here?" My sister sneered, "You're not welcome." Her husband roared, "How dare you?" I smiled and said, "Abandoned by my family since I turned 18. I never imagined our paths would cross again. Yet fate has its own twisted plan. At an extravagant wedding, I unexpectedly encountered those who once deemed me worthless. The moment their eyes met mine, their disdain was unmistakable. My mother's voice dripped with contempt. "What is that worthless girl doing here?" My sister folded her arms and sneered, "You're not on the list." Just as her soon-to-be husband was about to order my removal, he halted suddenly. His eyes widened, his face drained of color, and his voice broke as he murmured, "Wait, this woman is—" I offered a slow, knowing smile and replied, "Really, don't you know who I am? My name is Evelyn Moore." At 32, I walked into a celebration that was never meant for me, but fate, ever the ironic trickster, had other plans. Those in this room, the very people who dismissed me 14 years ago, still cling to the memory of the helpless, unwanted girl. They expected shock, humiliation, perhaps desperate pleas for forgiveness. But I am not that Evelyn they cast aside. I'm not the girl who was once told she was nothing, who'd never amount to a thing. They have no inkling of what I've built, no clue of who I've become. As they murmur, sneer, and cast resentful glances, with my mother's icy stare and my sister's barely concealed smugness, they remain unaware that the very woman they scorned is about to shatter their carefully constructed world. The grand ballroom pulsed with opulence. Wealth radiated from every polished surface. Crystal chandeliers reflected golden hues over tables draped in silk. Glistening silverware and the gentle clink of champagne flutes underscored the scene of high status. It was a gathering where people like me, the discarded, the forgotten, were not meant to be seen. And yet here I stood. For 14 years I had been erased from their minds. Perhaps in their eyes, I had ceased to exist the moment they expelled me, my presence finally lifting a burden. Now in the center of this lavish affair, dressed in a form-fitting black gown that accentuated every curve and my hair swept into an elegant updo, I realized they had not anticipated my return, and that made this moment all the sweeter. I let my eyes wander over the astonished faces. My mother remained as unyielding as ever, her manicured nails tapping against a champagne glass. My father pretended not to notice me, though the twitch in his jaw betrayed him. And then there was my sister, the so-called golden child, who regarded me with a mixture of confusion and irritation, as if my mere presence could tarnish her perfect day. "You're not supposed to be here," she snapped just loud enough to draw the attention of nearby guests, questioning my very invitation. I didn't flinch, I merely smiled and replied, "Funny, I recall receiving an invitation." Her future husband, Ron, who had been silent until then, stepped forward. His brow furrowed in a struggle to recognize me. His face turned pale, and for a moment, he appeared as though he'd seen a ghost. "Wait, this woman is," he stuttered. I advanced slowly, each step deliberate, my heels clicking against the marble floor. In a hushed murmur I said, "Really, don't you know who I am?" His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, and a heavy silence fell over the room. Suddenly, the wedding, once picture-perfect, began to crumble at its seams. I can still recall that fateful night 14 years ago when they expelled me. It was bitterly cold, the kind of chill that crept into your bones with every labored breath. My father stood in the doorway with crossed arms and unreadable expression. My mother didn't spare me a glance, and my sister smirked triumphantly. "You're a burden," my mother had declared. "A waste of time and money, we've done enough for you." My father had interjected, "Evelyn, you're 18 now. Figure yourself out." And just like that, they slammed the door on me, erasing my existence. I remember standing outside in the freezing air, fingers numb, with nothing but the clothes on my back and the sting of their final words. They didn't merely abandon me. They made me vanish from their world. Now, as I surveyed the wedding hall, I felt their lingering judgment. I wasn't there out of nostalgia or weakness, but to prove that if I ever met them again, I would stand taller than ever. I could sense panic behind their eyes, my mother shifting uncomfortably, my sister clenching her champagne flute with a little too much force. They might not understand how, but they knew I was no longer the girl they discarded. Then a voice cut through the tension. A man in a sharply tailored navy suit approached, and I exhaled in relief as I recognized him. Adam, my husband. He stepped beside me and gently rested his hand on my back, a quiet assertion that I was not alone. Is there a problem here? He asked, his tone both polite and resolute. My sister scoffed. Who do you think you are, Adam? Without missing a beat, Adam's eyes met mine as he declared, I'm Evelyn's husband. Silence fell and my mother's nostrils flared as Ron looked on, nearly overwhelmed. I bit back a smirk. They wanted to see me vanish to forget me, but here I was richer, stronger, untouchable. And this was only the beginning. I learned early on that survival isn't about sheer strength. It's about strategy. When they cast me out 14 years ago, I didn't simply walk away. I began to prepare. With no money, no safety net, and nothing but a hollow ache in the echo of their disdain, I resolved to transform their underestimation into my greatest advantage. While they carried on with their flawless lives, convinced I had disappeared like an inconvenient stain, I was silently watching, learning, and gathering every bit of ammunition I could. I knew my moment would come. And tonight that moment had arrived. 14 years ago, on that freezing night when everything changed, I had barely $17.28 to my name, insufficient even for a motel room. For 3 long days I slept in the back of a rundown diner, curled up near dumpsters where the kitchen's heat barely kept the cold at bay. A sharp-eyed diner owner named Rita eventually noticed me. Instead of calling the authorities, she handed me a broom and said, If you're going to loiter, at least be useful. That was my first break. By week's end, I was allowed to crash in an old car in the storage room. Within a month, she started paying me under the table. Over the next year, I saved every cent, fueled by a burning plan. I wasn't going to remain in that small town forever. No longer would I be the girl scrubbing dishes for minimum wage while my family squandered privileges they never deserved. I was determined to become someone they could never ignore. While my sister flaunted her status as the golden child and my parents basked in their illusion of a perfect family, I devoted myself to work and study. By the age of 20, I had earned a business scholarship. At 23, I landed an internship at a startup, and by 27 I launched my first company, a medical nutrition brand that would soon disrupt the industry as a multi-million-dollar powerhouse. I kept these achievements secret because they never deserved to know. Now, within the wedding hall, I still feel the weight of their scrutinizing eyes. My mother's gaze, as cold as ever, searched for flaws in me. My sister's controlled smirk seemed to suggest this was all just a fluke, a lucky accident that had somehow landed me in wealth. And then there was Ron, her fiancé, who turned pale the moment he saw me. I recognized that expression all too well, part recognition, part fear, and part guilt. Are you sure you want to do this? Adam whispered quietly beside me. A cautious reminder from the one person who truly understood my journey. I glanced at him, his dark eyes flitting between me and my family, fully aware of the charged atmosphere. I smiled and replied, Oh, I'm just getting started. My sister scoffed dismissively, rolling her eyes. You expect us to believe you're some success story? You couldn't even finish college. Tilting my head with a mix of amusement and curiosity, I countered. Is that all you were told? For just a moment, a flicker of hesitation passed over her face before she squared her shoulders. I won't entertain your lies, she declared. I'm the one who went to medical school, the one who dropped out, if you must know. Her tone was calm and calculated, and for a split second, her confident facade wavered before she masked it with defensiveness. You never completed school, did you? I said softly, stepping closer so that the watching guests could sense the shift in power. You flunked out before even getting the chance to apply for residency. Her nostrils flared in anger. That's not true. Oh, but it is, I replied, reaching into my clutch and producing a neatly folded sheet of paper. I held it up for those nearby to see, her academic record in stark black and white, proving that she had failed out 3 years ago. The color drained from her face. Ron turned to her with an expression mixing confusion and betrayal. What is this? He asked. It's fake, she hissed, her voice rising as she insisted. You're lying, I know it, and I'm sure Ron here does too. He didn't refute her. His eyes remained fixed on the paper as his jaw tightened under the weight of undeniable evidence. My mother stepped forward, her tone clipped. You've always been spiteful, Evelyn, ruining your sister's wedding like this. Oh, I'm just getting started. I countered with a sharp smile. If we're discussing ruined lives, let's not forget the financial fraud case building against the family clinic. A heavy silence followed. My father's voice, now subdued, finally broke through. What are you talking about? I arched an eyebrow and replied, did you really think I wouldn't know? Embezzlement, insurance fraud, falsified patient records. All the little secrets you hoped would never resurface. Leaning in so only he could hear, I added quietly, you never believed anyone would find out, did you? His face turned white as realization set in. The moment I had been preparing for years had finally arrived. I had clung to these pieces of evidence over the years, not out of malice, but because they taught me that when you've been underestimated, ignored, and discarded, you learn to bide your time. You gather your strength until you can not only fight back, but dismantle everything they built. Tonight, I am that reckoning they never expected. The moment hung thick in the air as my sister's perfectly rehearsed facade began to crumble. My father's fingers clenched at his side, and my mother's lips twisted into a sneer, more offended by my mere presence than by the truths now laid bare. Ron's gaze shifted uncertainly between me and the incriminating document in his hand. His pallor deepened with each heartbeat. Then, with a dramatic shift, my sister lifted her chin and laughed. Not a nervous, broken laugh, but a mocking, derisive one. Oh my God, she gasped, shaking her head in disbelief. This is actually hilarious. My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from the knowledge of the move I recognized all too well. She was about to resort to her familiar tactics, gaslighting, manipulation, and lies designed to bend reality. With a calculated sweep of her gaze to ensure an audience, she turned back to me, a smirk playing on her lips. Evelyn, you're trying to ruin my wedding with this? She jeered, gesturing dismissively at the paper as if it were nothing more than trash. This pathetic attempt to reclaim relevance only proves how desperate you are. I remained silent, determined not to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. She steps closer, lowering her voice so only I can hear. You think you're so clever, don't you? She murmurs, her breath heavy with condescension. You waltz in here and wreck everything I've built. Leaning in even more, her smirk widens. I always knew you were envious of me. There it is, the familiar accusation they've always used to excuse every harsh act against you. Envious. I echo, raising an eyebrow. Of what exactly? Come on, Elle scoffs, rolling her eyes. Look at my life, look at me. I have a successful fiancé, a loving family, a future you could only fantasize about. And you? You show up here, desperate for attention. She chuckles under her breath. The word pathetic slithers into my mind like a ghost from the past. I recall being 16 at the dinner table, while Elle soaked up our parents' praise. I remember hearing that word whispered in secret when they thought I couldn't hear. A word delivered with such certainty that my failure was preordained. Pathetic. But they don't know. They don't know that I stopped listening to their venom long ago. I smile slowly and tilt my head. Tell me, Elle, I say in a calm, even tone. If I'm so irrelevant, why do you look so nervous? For a brief moment, her smirk falters, an expression both Ron and I notice as his grip on the paper tightens, his brows knitting together. He continues to stare at it as though it were a ticking time bomb. In a quiet, controlled voice, Elle asks, is this true? At that, her demeanor shifts. She turns to him, softening her expression into one that seems carefully rehearsed. A blend of hurt, betrayal, and feigned wounded innocence. Run, babe, she coaxes, reaching for his arm with a voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. You're not seriously buying into her story, are you? It's Evelyn, you know how she is. She's always been twisting things, fabricating tales to feel significant. Gaslighting again. I watch as Ron exhales slowly, his jaw set tight. He wants to believe her version. His shoulders tense as he wrestles with his own doubts. But that seed of uncertainty has already taken firm root. My father, exasperated, steps forward with a commanding air. You've ruined this night enough, Evelyn. Take your lies and get out. I inhale deeply, exhaling in a controlled manner. Are you really sure you want to do this, Dad? I ask in a voice that's unervingly calm. He scoffs, dismissing my question as denial of reality. I tilt my head, watching the tension ripple through his jaw. I can assure you, I continue, if we continue down this path, you won't like where it leads. Elle scoffs again. Oh, give me a break. You don't have anything on us. I let out a genuine laugh. You're right, I don't have anything, except for 14 years worth of evidence. Her face twists in disbelief as my eyes wander across the room. Did you really think I'd vanish without a trace? I muse. I reach into my clutch and withdraw a sleek black USB drive. While she was busy playing the perfect daughter and our parents pretended I never existed, I was busy collecting proof. I lift the USB slightly, revealing bank statements. Elle's breath catches. Emails. My father stiffens as legal documents tie our little family clinic to multiple counts of insurance fraud. My mother even gasps. I smile and ask, shall I continue? The shift in the room is palpable. A moment when the hunted realizes the predator has been watching all along. Elle's bravado crumbles, my father's confidence falters, and for the first time since I walked in, my mother appears frightened. They finally understand. They thought they'd won, but now, standing amidst the ruins of their arrogance, they see the truth. I didn't return merely to remind them of what they did. I returned to bring it all down. A heavy silence falls. Elle stands rigid, her hands clenched until her knuckles turn white. My father, the usual epitome of dominance, suddenly seems small, and my mother, always so poised and superior, loses her grip on control. I can almost hear the frantic gears turning in their minds, searching for an escape. But there isn't one because I built this trap and now I'm triggering it. Elle forces out a brittle, desperate laugh. This is a joke, she says, shaking her head. You're bluffing. You have nothing. I tilt my head, twirling the USB drive slowly between my fingers. Oh really? Are you sure you want to bet your entire future on that? Ron, who has been unervingly quiet until now, suddenly snatches the USB from my hand. His movements are frantic, as if merely holding it might somehow obliterate its contents. What the hell is this? He demands, glaring at Elle. Don't listen to her, Elle stammers, she's lying. She's always been jealous of you, Ron. She just wants to ruin our wedding. I cross my arms, watching the scene unfold like a director savoring the climax of a perfectly executed play. Go ahead, I say coolly, nodding at the USB in his hand. Plug it in and see for yourself. He hesitates, clearly torn between what he wants to be true and the evidence staring him in the face. Finally, his expression hardens as he strides over to the DJ booth, yanking his laptop from behind the sound system. Ron, stop, Elle shrieks, lunging forward, but it's too late. The screen lights up as Ron inserts the drive, his eyes darting back and forth as he reads. Then he stiffens. The color drains from his face, his jaw locks. I watch the exact moment he realizes the undeniable truth. Elle crumbles in real time. Ron, she pleads in a trembling voice, whatever she's showing you isn't. You lied to me, he booms, his voice loud enough to freeze the entire ballroom. You played me. You all played me. My mother lifts her chin in defiance as Ron addresses her. Ron, sweetheart, you're overreacting. You and Elle are meant to be together, meant to be. He laughs, but it is devoid of humor. A bitter laugh born of shattered trust. I was going to marry you, he hisses at Elle. I defended you. I trusted you. And all this time you were nothing but a spoiled fraud. Elle bursts into tears, but it is too late. You're not a doctor, Ron spits venomously. You're nothing. With that, he rips off his wedding ring and hurls it at her feet. The room erupts in scandalized gasps and murmurs as Ron marches toward the exit, his future crumbling in one single moment. Elle sobs, sinking to the floor in her designer gown, her tears mingling with the shreds of her once perfect life. But the collapse doesn't end with the wedding alone. The USB was only one piece of the puzzle. I turn to the crowd, my gaze landing on a well-dressed older man near the back, the hospital director, Peter Cern, whose name Elle always touted. Peter Cern, I call out casually. He visibly stiffens as murmurs ripple through the guests. You might be interested to know, I continue, that one of your so-called medical professionals is actually a high school dropout with no real credentials. A murmur spreads like wildfire. Dr. Peterson's face reddens as he glares at my father. You told me she had her degree, he protests. My father, now sweating visibly, stammers, We can fix this. It's not fraud, not a felony, Dr. Peterson mutters under his breath. I trusted you more than that. You said your daughter was. She's not my daughter. my father shouts desperately. Now! The entire ballroom falls silent for a heartbeat. I smile, savoring the moment. That's an interesting statement, coming from someone who's been using my identity for tax fraud for the past decade. My father's face pales further. I had my identity verified recently, I add lightly. Imagine my shock when I learned someone was using my social security number to file fraudulent tax returns and launder money through your family-run clinic. The hospital director snaps his fingers at his assistant. Call the legal department now. My father opens his mouth to protest, but I beat him to it. Just so you know, I add, the IRS has already been informed. His face collapses and the room erupts into chaos. Security steps forward. My father attempts to speak, but Dr. Peterson cuts him off. Your career is over, Elle, he declares. Elle crumples to the floor, her makeup smudging as she lies there. My mother stands rigid, finally realizing there is no salvaging this. And I simply stand there watching. They deserve every bit of this justice. The chaos intensifies. Guests murmur and back away, fearful of being tainted by association. Elle remains on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, while Ron, her once devoted fiancé, storms out, dragging behind him the remnants of his shattered trust. I should walk away, should be satisfied by this spectacle, but I don't move. Not yet. For years I dreamed of this moment. Standing before them, not as the broken girl they abandoned, but as the woman they never saw coming. As I take in the sight of their crumbling world, I feel the final decisive snap of the thread that once bound us. My father, who once looked down on me with nothing but disappointment, now eyes me with a spark of fear. My mother, usually so composed and superior, seems utterly lost for words. And Elle, the so-called golden child, now lies on her knees, eyes wide with desperate pleading. Evelyn, please, she begs, her voice trembling. I let her plea hang in the air, savoring it. For the first time I hold all the power. I tilt my head slowly and reply coolly, please? That's interesting because I don't recall you ever saying that when you stole everything from me. She flinches, unable to respond, tears streaming silently. I was young, I continue sharply. I didn't care then and I still don't. Her lip trembles as she acknowledges her defeat. My father finally snaps out of his shock, his face contorted with anger. You think you're better than us now? He hisses. Just because you made some money, you believe you have the right to humiliate your family? I laugh a genuine, unrestrained laugh because it's utterly absurd. Here stands a man clinging to his ego, even as he's lost everything. You stopped being my family a long time ago, I say evenly. As for being better than you, well, I don't even need to think about it. I know I am. Security finally reaches them. Dr. Peterson is already on the phone, ensuring that my father's medical license is revoked, and the IRS won't take long to sort out the mess. Meanwhile, Elle's friends and colleagues begin to distance themselves, watching as her once promising future burns to ash. I take a deep breath, letting the weight of it all settle. Then, with finality, I turn my back on them. At 32, I walk away, stepping over the discarded engagement ring glinting on the floor, over the remnants of a life I once craved. Outside, Adam waits by the doors. He doesn't ask if I'm okay. He simply understands. His fingers brush mine, a quiet anchor, a silent promise. I squeeze his hand, and together we step into the cool, crisp night. The city hums around us, blissfully unaware of the wreckage we've left behind. Adam glances at me, his brows slightly raised. Cake, he asks softly. I blink in surprise, then burst into a deep, uninhibited laugh. Yes, I say, still grinning. Let's get some cake because tonight isn't about them, it's about me. And for the first time in my life I feel light. Revenge was never the goal. Freedom was. And now I am completely free. The chaos slowly began to subside as the guests filtered out into hushed clusters, their whispers echoing in the spacious ballroom like fading remnants of a shattered illusion. Outside, beneath the cool glow of streetlights, I stepped away from the wreckage of my past, and into a future that was entirely my own. The cold night air brushed against my skin as I walked alongside Adam, whose steady presence was a reminder that I was never truly alone. His hand in mine felt like a promise, a silent vow of new beginnings and endless possibilities. In the quiet moments after the storm, I found myself reflecting on the years of isolation and pain that had molded me into the woman I was today. I remembered the bitter nights spent shivering in the back of that rundown diner, the despair of feeling completely unwanted by those who were supposed to love me. Yet each hardship had been a stepping stone, a lesson in resilience that taught me to channel my pain into power. It was not revenge that had fueled my return. It was the relentless pursuit of freedom and self-actualization. The events of the evening rippled through my thoughts like a powerful tide. I could still hear the sharp retorts, the clamor of accusations, and the desperate gasps as my family's carefully constructed facade crumbled before everyone's eyes. With each revelation, the weight of their betrayal lifted a little more from my shoulders. I had spent years collecting evidence, not for the sake of retribution alone, but as proof of the truth, a testament to my unwavering resolve in the face of deception. Tonight, that truth had become undeniable. As I strolled through the quiet streets with Adam, memories of the past began to dissolve into the soft darkness of the night. The ruins of my old life, my family's toxic expectations and false promises, lay behind me like broken glass scattered on the pavement. In their place emerged a vision of a future where I could finally embrace who I was meant to be. I recalled the countless nights spent drafting plans for a life that would defy the limitations imposed upon me by those who had cast me aside. I had built a career from scratch, a thriving business, a legacy of achievements that no one could take away. Yet, more importantly, I had rebuilt my identity with strength, intelligence, and grace. The city around me buzzed with life, each light a symbol of hope and renewal. Adam squeezed my hand reassuringly as we approached a small cafe tucked away on a quiet corner. There, amid the soft murmur of conversation and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee, we sat and talked about our dreams and plans. I shared with him the lessons I had learned from every hardship, the importance of perseverance, the need to trust oneself even when the world seemed intent on proving you wrong. He listened intently, his eyes reflecting both admiration and love. His support had always been my anchor, a steady force that had kept me grounded during even the most turbulent times. As dawn crept over the horizon, I felt a profound sense of closure wash over me. The wounds inflicted by my family's cruelty had begun to mend, replaced by an unyielding resolve to forge my own destiny. I realized that the true victory was not in dismantling their world, but in reclaiming my own. I had taken back control over my life, transforming the bitterness of abandonment into the fuel for my liberation. In the days and weeks that followed, news of the night's events spread like wildfire, reshaping public perception of the family that had once ruled with an iron fist. The legal fallout from their misdeeds was swift and unforgiving. My father's professional credibility crumbled under the weight of evidence, and my mother's icy composure melted into regret as her secrets were laid bare. Even Elle, once the golden child, found herself drowning in the consequences of her lies. Yet amid the fallout, I discovered an unexpected serenity, a clarity that comes only when the past is finally confronted and accepted. I began to rebuild not only my life but also my relationships, reaching out to those who had offered genuine kindness over the years. New opportunities emerged as I was invited to speak at events, sharing my journey from rejection to triumph. Each story I told resonated with people who had known the sting of abandonment, and slowly, I became a beacon of hope for others struggling to find their place in a world that often felt indifferent. One crisp autumn afternoon, standing in a sunlit park with Adam by my side, I finally embraced the truth. I was no longer defined by the scars of my past. I was free, not merely from the chains of familial betrayal, but free to create, to love, and to live without the constant shadow of doubt. I had taken every painful experience and transformed it into the foundation upon which I built a new life. In that moment, as the leaves danced around us in a gentle breeze, I understood that true freedom comes from within. The journey had been long and fraught with sorrow, but it had also been one of incredible growth. I learned that forgiveness of others and of oneself is not a sign of weakness but a declaration of strength. By letting go of the past, I opened the door to a future filled with promise and endless possibility. And as I gazed into Adam's warm eyes, I knew that, at last, I was exactly where I was meant to be. This was not the end of my story, but a new beginning, one defined not by the cruelty of my past, but by the power of my resilience and the boundless hope of tomorrow.